Hi, everyone. Great to be with you here today. My name is Katty Douraghy, and my company, Artisan Creative, is a creative agency working with businesses of all sizes to provide creative marketing and digital services. We work with clients both by providing as-needed project services for both design and marketing and copywriting, as well as if they have a marketing team already in place, then we help support them with staffing or recruitment services if they need that. For today's session, we're going to be talking about getting your brand ready for connecting and making sure that once your ideal client finds you, that your brand resonates with them. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you. If you have any issues and you can't see, please send me a chat on the chat box. Otherwise, hopefully this will be smooth sailing. All right. So here we go. All right. So as the first part of our agenda for today, I thought we would just very briefly talk about who we are, what branding is, and the three keys to branding, which are the values, the voice, and the visuals that go into making the entire branding process. And then just wrap it up with some resources for you. And if you need to get in touch for any additional information, I'm happy to share some of that with you as we move forward. So to kind of just pose it out to each of you here, what is branding? For most small businesses, branding encompasses the logo, the colors, maybe the website, and that encompasses the entire picture of branding. And what I want to do today is take it a few levels deeper and really talk about all the elements that go into making a brand, and not just from a visuals perspective, but the whole entity to kind of create for you the entire full picture of what branding encompasses. And then each of you can decide, based on the needs of your business, what elements should be your first go-to elements to create or to make sure that you have ready. So I talked a couple of minutes ago about who Artisan is. Curious how many of you remembered my spiel about Artisan and what my business pitch was. What I want to do here is I actually want to talk about a brand story and kind of have for you decide for yourself which one resonated with you first. So my first intro was just very basic about the marketing services that we offer. And here on this slide, I want to not only introduce our visuals to you, but also tell you a story that one of our employees actually came up with about Artisan. And it goes like this. Once upon a time, an entrepreneur ventured west to experiment with a new concept of opening an agency focused on creative, digital, and marketing projects. Like any new business, it took time to create a buzz. With hard work, persistence, and dedication, the business became a success. And today, 20 plus years later, Artisan is like a fine wine that gets better with time. We believe in building strong relationships through superior client service, effective listening, consistent follow-through, and action. Now, of all those two pitches, which one of those two stories do you remember? So think about it for yourself. As you are doing your elevator pitch, or as you meet a client for the very first time, how is your story delivered? What piece of that story is what's going to be resonating with them? For each of us, it's different because our businesses and our industries are different. And I just want you to start thinking about what branding really means and what is the story that you're sharing with your clients. So truly, if you think about it, branding is the emotional connection that we create. It's the emotional connection that someone has with your product or with your service. So as we start this conversation about values and about voice and about visual, I want you to think for yourselves about the emotional connection that somebody has with your product or with your service. So branding includes truly the message that you're sharing, the differentiation that you have in your marketplace, the brand promise that your product or your service is giving to your clients, the processes by which you are handling issues with your clients, or you're addressing any customer service challenges that may come up. But also it goes back to, as I mentioned before, truly your core values. It goes back to your brand reputation and your standing in your marketplace, and the authenticity with which you are communicating your messages and your services to your clients. And ultimately, it ends with the design, the visuals that then reinforce your messages to your clients. So that's what we're going to be talking about today, is really breaking this down for you into elements where it's clear for you how to proceed from this stage forward. So the next thing to really focus on for the remainder of our conversation is going to be the 3 keys of effective branding. And as I mentioned before, it starts with your values, it's your voice, and really the brand visuals that you're bringing to the table. Okay? If anyone has any questions so far, please feel free to send me a chat. Otherwise, I'm going to just continue going, and we'll open it up for any questions that you may have afterwards, okay? So first and foremost, we'll talk about values. And excuse me, I have a little bit of a cold, so if I get into a little bit of a coughing fit, that's what's happening. Excuse me there. So we're going to talk about the values first, and what that means to each of us, and what that means to our companies. For yourselves, I'm curious if you already have core values defined for your company, and whether those core values are somehow communicated externally, either through your brand statement, your mission, vision statements, whether that's on your website. And if that's not part of your communication, that would be the first challenge to put out to you, is to make sure that when you've defined your values, that they are not a secret, and that they are actually communicated to the outside world. So truly the first key in branding is what your company's guiding principles are, and what are the values that you stand for. What is the focus for your company? What is the core thing that you are awesome at and that you're focusing in for your clients? And truly, what is that brand purpose? What is it that it stands for? Your company's vision, your company's mission, where your company is going and how it's going to get there. Those are all key things that can very easily be woven into your core value statements. And truly, at the end of the day, the brand promise that you are making to your clients and to your staff. So, branding isn't, just for our external marketing. It's really for our internal voice as well. And also really digging down and really figuring out how your response rate is to any issues that come up with your product and service. We can have a great marketing campaign out there, but if we're not responding to challenges that may come up with our product or service, that right away starts diminishing what our brand promise is. So I want you to think about those things for yourself. And as an example, if you think for some of the brands that you know out there in the marketplace, for example, Southwest Airlines, what are some things that come up to you as you're thinking about Southwest Airlines? For those of you in the US who may fly this low-cost carrier, you know that one of the things that they stand for is low fares. Another thing that's part of their tagline, is part of their advertising, you see them on the little napkins that they give you, is their transparency. And they've taken they play on word of being transparent and what they offer, and they call it transparency, which I think is really clever. They don't have fees for baggages or changes and so on and so forth. So they're very, very clear in terms of what it is that they stand for. But within the same entity, They're fun, they're casual. When you're on their plane, they're making jokes, they're singing, they wear shorts. So that the entire brand story is very well communicated from not only their advertising, but all the way down to their uniforms and how they welcome you onto the plane. So those are some of the things that I'm talking about when I talk about values, and kind of just what is the overall, that first initial thing that you're looking at when you're establishing those values for yourself. And some of the things to kind of ask for yourself is, what is your marketplace, and where are you within that marketplace, and how do you stand out, and how do you differentiate? Is your brand a fun brand? Is your brand, a light brand? Is it a friendly brand? If you're in the software security space, for example, is your brand a safe brand? Is security something that's being communicated? Is technology something that's being communicated? Are you an innovative brand? Are you a futuristic brand? So these are all the types of things that you can start thinking about to define your core values. And if you have already defined your core values, these are some of the exercises that you can take yourself through to really figure out exactly what it is that you stand for and that you can communicate through your voice and through your visuals. Because as I mentioned before, branding isn't just something that we do externally. It's just as important internally. And our teams need to be able to articulate that brand promise as well as you can, as well as you as the business owner can. Everyone on our teams needs to be able to know that vision and be able to communicate that externally with our client, with our customer base. And it's important for our customer base to also know what those brand values are and what we stand for. All right? One of the things that, as we talk about this, and I'll be talking about a couple of times throughout our conversation, is as a business owner, as you start hiring on your teams, defining that brand value and hiring to your core values and knowing just kind of who on your team embodies these core values is going to really help you as you're building and defining the culture of your company as well. So branding really does impact that quite a bit too. So when you start thinking about your defining your brand value and kind of your core values, start thinking about some of the things that I mentioned. Think about some words that really resonate with you. There's certainly plenty of online tools to write a core value statement. Sometimes I feel that they actually may be a little limiting because they kind of guide you to a particular point. So if you're going to use any online tools for that, by all means, have that be just one essence of what you're doing. Make sure that you are just engaging your team and engaging your those around you to be able to help you establish those values. So certainly engaging your employees, why are they working for you? What do they think your brand stands for? Surveying your customer base. Let me move these pictures out of the way. Surveying your customer base, why are they your clients? Or surveying clients who are no longer working with you. Why did they leave you? Those that are with you, why will they refer you? Find out from them. Surveying is a great tool to be able to get some insight into your overall marketplace and kind of how you stand out there within your competitors. So research your competitors. What do they stand for? And how are you different? What is your unique differentiation in the market? And finally, ask your vendors as well. They're a great resource. Why are they working with you? And how do you differentiate? All of this research, all of this dialogue will help you define your purpose and really figure out where your core values and your brand promise is. And to kind of show you an example, we did this exercise with our team at Artisan, and I'll show you kind of what they came up with here. So we brought in an external facilitator that engaged our team to first and foremost discover what our why was. Why is it that we do what we do? And we came up with a list of core values. A couple of them I'll share with you is, one of them is to create relationships based on trust. as you may remember, I actually had that woven into the story that I told you, our brand story that I told you in the beginning of our conversation. And one of the things that we also stand for is quality over quantity, especially on the recruitment side of our business. So in engaging with our team, we did an all-day offsite with a facilitator. And my team, actually, our team came up with what is our entire brand statement, which is on our website. So, we believe working with integrity, respect, honesty comes opportunities for all. We believe in teamwork, collaboration, support. We believe in life-work integration, quality over quantity. We believe in having our own identity, staying engaged, and having fun. So these are all the things that really come through about our team. And if you look through our site and go on our social media, you'll see that our colors are fun. We use fun graphics, fun illustrations, because that's what we're all about. And we believe that success is achieved with the right team. So my team internally and how we communicate externally is called the A-team, because you may have noticed that my logo is a big A. So our team is the A-team. So all of that is part of our dialogue and part of how we communicate internally and externally. So that is the challenge that I'm going to leave you with for the value section, is really engage those around you. And if you don't have a team yet, if you're just in the process of building a team, engage your vendors, engage family and friends, engage those who know you and can help you really define what is the promise that you're making here with your business and what is the promise that your brand is making for your clients and for your future employees. All right. Moving on, the next piece that we're going to talk about is your brand voice. And your brand voice is truly everything in terms of how you're communicating. It's what your social media is saying. It's what the information is that you have listed on your website. It's not only what you're saying, but it's how you're saying it and when you're saying it. If you're blogging, if you are a type of business that is tied into current events, how that messaging is reinforcing your values and your expertise and your positioning in the marketplace is really critical to making sure that all aspects of your branding are really speaking to each other in a very cohesive and consistent manner. And when we talk about voice, we're talking about, not only how you're communicating, but also where you are communicating. Some of your business may be very externally focused on social media, and some of your businesses may not have that piece of the puzzle as where your clients are hanging out. So kind of recognizing where your clients are going to be and how you need to message them is going to really play an important part in your external communication, which, not only with your website, but if you're blogging, your social media, if you're managing your social media community, deciding which channels of social media are important for you because that's where your clients are going to be. Your brochures, your advertising, if you go to trade shows, your trade show marketing material, all of those are part of your voice. That's really the copywriting piece of the puzzle, really your messaging and your communication and your communication methodology and your communication, the words that you're using to communicate. It really validates everything that's part of your brand. I touched upon this earlier, but the internal voice is just as critical in establishing your culture in how you onboard new team members, for example, in terms of how you're writing your job descriptions, in terms of what your hiring practices are, and how you communicate with candidates, and how you're handling your incoming calls, what your front office is saying when you're first picking up your calls. Is it a fun, friendly, welcoming tone? Is it a auto dial? Like all of those things are part of your overall messaging. So just be aware of it and just, pay attention to it, as well as your training. How are you training your staff? Do they know how to communicate and welcome clients when they call in? Do they know how to communicate when an inquiry comes through your customer service portal or through your e-commerce or through just an email? How is all of that being communicated? And of course, we're all in business trying to grow our businesses. So the sales component of our brand voice is critical as well. How we're doing our business pitches, how we're overcoming objections, for example, how we're leaving voicemails, how are we conducting our surveys and our feedback processes with our clients. All of that are not only messaging what our voice is, but ultimately feeding back into our brand values, because all of that is, again, tied into one another. The next piece of the puzzle here, that's the final piece of the puzzle, is really the visuals of it. The graphics that go along with it, your logo, your colors, all of that should embody everything that we've talked about thus far. But the key thing with visuals is to really be consistent with your creative. So if you're using icons, for example, in how you're communicating, if you're using how your logo is being used, how your logo shouldn't be used. If you're working with external partners to create some of your visuals for you, it's really important to be able to communicate that with them as well, so that your messaging and your voice, as well as your visuals, fully encompass what your overall brand promise is. So to create that consistency, it's important to kind of just do a quick little comparison. These are two global giants out there that we're all familiar with, Apple and Disney, but vastly different in terms of their identity, correct? So Apple is sleek and futuristic and technology focused, and Disney is fun and it's friendly, and you can see just by their typeface that that embodies that fun kid family piece to it. So again, as you are identifying what your logo should be, what your creative should be, what your colors should be, really think about, back to what we were talking about before, the words that define you, the words that define your value promise, and really define kind of just who are you and who is it that you're trying to attract. All of those will come into play when you're defining your visuals, and especially if you don't have an internal marketing team that isn't aware of just your overall brand value. If you have to communicate this to outside vendors, it's really important to be able to have a document that you can hand to them and say, excuse me, this is what we stand for, and this is what we want our visuals to be able to communicate. So as we're looking at visuals, there's just so much to have to keep track of, and really so much to have to develop. Not all of you will need all of this information. This is just really intended to be a checklist. And based on your business, and really based on, again, where your clients are, where you go to find your clients, you have to kind of determine for yourself whether you need all of these, some of these, none of these. So because that determination is yours. But just from my 20 plus years of experience in this field, there's a couple of items here that I've put check marks next to that tend to traditionally be the common denominators for most businesses. Obviously, with we all need to have a brand identity. That's our logo. The brand guide, that style guide, is something that I mentioned before. That's really the guidelines as to how our colors should be used, what our colors are, what the PMS values, and what the do's and don'ts are as it comes to our logo and our colors, so we can communicate with outside firms. Business cards, if you're the kind of business that go to trade shows or go to networking events and you need cards, then obviously that needs to play into the overall communication. If you do a lot of pitches, if you do a lot of presentations, webinars, having a PowerPoint that's created for you that really encompasses your overall branding and logos and colors, that's critical. Then the rest of it, whether you need brochures, whether you need icons created for yourself, whether you go to trade shows and you need a booth, whether you have a big building that you need outside signage for, or if you need a logo or signage for on the exterior of your front door, any of those things, those are things that you can just determine for yourselves. But the key things on the print pieces you'll see there with the check marks. And obviously, web is absolutely critical. I would say if there was nothing else on any of these other things and you had to just pick one item to have that you focus on, that you put some marketing dollars behind, would be your website. And to make sure that website is mobile optimized. So many people now, clients look for you on their mobile devices, on their phones. So we want to make sure that your website is what is called a responsive site. That means it's mobile optimized, that your menus and your imagery and everything, readjusts itself on a smaller screen. And most websites can come with pre-created templates that are responsive and are mobile optimized. So if you're talking to an outside vendor for your designs, make sure that you're really encouraging that. And then, of course, your SEO. We all want to be found online. We want clients to be able to find us. So how you're doing your SEO and your messaging, and again, those keywords that you're defining, utilizing that in your website copy is critical. And with social, depending again on your business, it's important to recognize what social channels are best for you. Where is it again that your clients are going to be hanging out? Are you a fashion brand? Then maybe Instagram would be the better avenue. Are you more of a corporate brand? That LinkedIn is definitely the avenue. Do you have a lot of content that you're putting out? So maybe Twitter would be the better avenue. You need to decide for yourself what are the correct channels, what that cover art for all of those channels is going to look like, how that's going to embody your brand as a whole, and really the frequency of content that you want to put out. You need to decide as part of your marketing calendar whether you're going to communicate on social daily, weekly, monthly, but there has to be some sort of a calendar in order to be able to effectively communicate and be picked up by different aggregators and different channels for communications, especially if you're blogging. That's a very important piece of the puzzle on social. So these are some of the visual pieces that for you to just keep in mind. Again, you don't have to do all of them. Each of your businesses is going to require a certain set, and you need to define that for yourselves. And hopefully, if you don't have anybody on your marketing team that can help you with that, then obviously an outside consultant would be able to kind of point you into the right direction. And truly, to kind of wrap up our conversation, branding is everything. How you're portraying yourself in the marketplace, and what is it that you're representing, and what marketing channels you're using. But as I mentioned before, even in your hiring practices, as your business grows and your team grows and you're trying to define your culture, and as you're trying to add more people to your team, really defining who that ideal candidate is and be able to write job descriptions that create success and help you find that candidate better, and how you retain and you hire that talent. To give you a little example, just this morning, we had someone who had engaged us about about 6 months ago to help them hire talent for their team. And we found someone that we thought was perfect. The client decided to go into a different direction. They really stopped communicating. They really weren't communicating with us and giving us that much feedback. Fast forward 6 months later, they come back and saying, hey, is that candidate still available? We're actually very interested in that person. And we reached out to the candidate, and the candidate said, you know what? I'm no longer interested. I don't want to work for a company that doesn't really know what it is that they're looking for. So even down to that granular level, just to be aware that what your actions in the marketplace, whether it's to clients or to candidates that you're trying to hire, everything that we do, every message really goes back down to those core values and what our voice is in the marketplace. So I want to leave you with that. And really how that comes into business development, because you want to be where your client is and you want to define who your ideal client is, because that's who you're going to be communicating with. That's what your lead generation and your prospecting techniques, again, and your frequency of communication is all going to be defined through that branding piece of who you are and what is it that you want to say and how is it that you want to say. So as a final piece here of our conversation, I want to just leave you with some future learning. Some of the topics that I referenced here come out of 2 books that I'd like to leave you with. One is Stand Out by Winnie Hart and Lori Brignac-Lee. You should be able to get some information on it if you go to their website, twinengine.com standout. And then another book called Traction, which is really about scaling up and building up your business by Gino Wickman. He has a great section on defining core values and kind of some exercises to go around that. A book that I read recently, To Sell is Human, that whole piece that I had in the beginning of the presentation about the entrepreneur who moves west, how you pitch. There's a whole section on pitching. That's a great book for that, and really look at how you're pitching, what your email statements look like, what is your elevator pitch, and really kind of takes you through that entire process as well. And then Discover Your Why, the whyinstitute.com. That's the consultant that I mentioned who came in and did our branding exercise and our why exercise, and that's how we came up with our core values. So if any of these resources can be a great resource to you, please feel free to either reach out to me and I'll be happy to make an introduction, or feel free just to reach out to them directly, or the books are all available on Amazon as well. And if you have any further questions, or if you don't have resources and don't know where to go for getting your brand values and visuals and voice defined, obviously please connect with Silver Lining. They'll be a great resource for you there. And they can always connect with me as well, and I'd be happy to help you out. And if you need to get in touch, we are on social. Please feel free to stay connected. If you have any questions about this presentation, or if any part of it didn't make sense, please feel free to reach out, and you'll find all my data and social information here as well. I want to thank you for spending this portion of your afternoon with me, and I hope that it was helpful and beneficial, and that it'll help you get connected to your clients. Thank you. Any questions? All right, well, thank you so much for spending the afternoon with me.